Good afternoon. Today we're going to be answering some of the most frequently asked questions that we got in response to our Cruise Week video series that we just put up. So a lot of you guys had some really good questions and really things that I think will help out a lot of other people when they're planning out a cruise.
So when you're planning a cruise, there's a lot of stuff to think about. There are a lot of things that go into planning it. So we wanted to answer some of the questions. Like Tim said, you guys had a lot of really great questions.
I did want to preface this entire video with the fact that it is now December 2021. We are in the middle of coronavirus still. So there are some things that are specific to cruising currently. So just keep that in mind when you're watching this, because some things could be different in the future.
Yeah.
So what are some of the questions that we got?
Okay, so I just screenshotted your questions that you left in the comments. So the first question that we got is everything on the island included in the price of the cruise, other than the snorkeling and bikes, like the food, slides, and stuff on the island? And how about the different restaurants on the ship? Are they included in the price of the cruise? Do you get to pick which ones you go to, or is it predetermined where you eat each night? So let's start with the first question.
Okay.
Is everything on the island included in the price of the cruise? And so what they're asking is everything on Castaway Cay, which is Disney's private island, is everything included in the cruise?
So no, not everything is included. There are some things that are included though.
Mostly everything is included.
Right.
You don't have to pay an additional fee to go onto the island. Going onto the island is completely free. The food that you saw us eat for lunch, that's included. That's completely free. If you wanted to purchase alcoholic beverages, if you wanted to get a beer or a wine or something like that, those are not included. And they do have bars that you can go to get those things.
And bottled water is not included. But during the time that the lunch place is open, there is included sodas that you can get. You can get just like a cup of water. You can also get free soft serve ice cream all day long, while the food restaurant is open.
That is one thing that you have to kind of be sure that you plan your day to make sure you're not missing lunch.
Right.
Because lunch is only from, I think it was 11 to 2:30.
Right.
And so if you miss it, you miss it. You don't get any lunch on the island.
But once you go back on the ship, you can get food on the ship.
Right. So the other things on the island that are not included, like stuff that we did, was the snorkel gear, the bike rentals, and there was something else that was, they had like kayaks and ocean bikes and things like that.
Yeah, and those would be considered excursions on the island, and excursions are not included. So they have a glass bottom boat excursion that you can do on Castaway Cay. Things like that are not included, but the basics are.
Yeah, so when you saw us going down the slide, that's all included. You don't pay for that. When we went to the splash pad, that's all included. There was a ropes course almost. We were too old to go on it, and Jackson was too young to go on it, so we never really got to show it to you. But that was something that was also a fun thing that you could do that was included.
I will also say that the less snorkeling equipment that you rent, the cheaper it is. So I had my own mask, so I didn't get charged for a mask. I just got charged for the vest and fin. So for example, for one day on Castaway Cay, renting a package that includes a bike rental, all of the snorkel gear, and a float for you to go out and float in the ocean, that was $46 per person for adults. And then for kids, it was $26 per child, ages 5 to 9.
But you can rent those things separately as well.
Right.
So, and the pricing would be a little bit different on that. But you could just rent the snorkel gear or just the tube or just the bikes. But we opted to do the bundle because it was a little bit less expensive to bundle everything together.
And it's also cheaper if you book ahead of time versus on the island.
So they also asked, is the food on the ship included in the price of the cruise? And for the most part, the food is included.
Right.
Now there are more premium options that you can opt to pay extra for. So when we went on the cruise, we opted to do a dinner at Remys one night on our day at sea, and that was an additional $125 per person on top of what we paid for the cruise.
But there is a lot of stuff on the ship that is included, like burgers, hot dogs, there's a buffet, all of your dinners in the rotational dining are included. And when I say rotational dining, one of the other questions that I ask is, do you get to pick what restaurant you go to? And no, you don't. You are assigned a restaurant to go to each night, but everybody gets to go to every restaurant at least once during your cruise.
Yeah. So I will say that it's definitely not, you don't need to do the additional dining on the cruise to have a great cruise. I think the food that we had at Animator's Palette and at the Royal Court and at Enchanted Garden, those dinners that we had were great.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy the food. I do, however, think that Remy's is very delicious, and I do recommend checking it out if that's something that you're interested in. But like I said, you don't have to do those things to have a great cruise.
Same thing with Palo. Palo is another restaurant on our specific ship that was an upcharge.
Yeah, and so we did Palo on our cruise, our first cruise that we did, and I'm going to link all of our cruise videos down below. But when we had the Palo dinner, it was fantastic. It was a little bit less involved than Remy's, but I do think that they're both great choices.
Yeah.
We haven't had the Remy's brunch, but that's something that I would for sure love to try just based on our experience for dinner. That's another one that's an additional upcharge. But we did try the Palo brunch on one of the cruises that we went on, and it was delicious. And I will say that I enjoyed the Palo brunch more than the Palo dinner.
So another thing that was an extra charge that I always thought was interesting is they have free soft serve ice cream on the ship, but you can buy like an upgraded ice cream. And they have free coffee on the ship, but you can buy like an upgraded coffee. Like you can get a latte, but you have to pay for the latte, but you can just get black coffee anytime you want to.
So the upgraded coffees are from a place called the Cove Bar. And I will say that it was just like a nice place to go into.
Yeah.
So I really did enjoy just like going into the Cove Bar. You get a free pastry with your coffee order, and you can get pastries just at Cabanas, which is the buffet restaurant. But the pastries in the Cove Bar were just a little bit more elevated. So I don't know. I do recommend getting the coffee in the Cove Bar. They also had like this little machine that printed like a Disney princess, like a picture on top of your latte. So I thought that was like a nice little touch too.
Yeah.
So question number 2 is, does the ship have a babysitter? I saw twice they were without Jackson. Is that included in the price you pay for the cruise?
So there is a place on the cruise ship called It's a Small World Nursery that offers a babysitting service for ages 6 months to 3 years old.
But it's not a babysitting service in the way that they would come to your room and watch your child. It's like a daycare center almost.
Yeah, they call it group babysitting.
Yeah.
And so this is an additional charge. It is $4.50 per half hour per child. And then when you add a second child on, it's $4 per half hour for the second child. Mm-hmm. So it can get pricey, and they highly recommend reservations ahead of your cruise.
So you won't necessarily get a spot in the nursery. It could be full, like all of the the spot that you want might be full.
Right.
So when we went on the cruise, the nursery is currently closed because of COVID, unfortunately. So they do have another play area for kids that they supervise your child for you, and that was the Oceaneer Club, which we showed you guys in, I think it was day 2 of our video.
Yeah.
And I'll link all this stuff down below. It's really amazing. They have lots of interactive fun like games for the kids to play. There are characters that will come in and talk to them. So it's definitely a fun place for kids, and I know that they have a great time when they're there. So unfortunately, Jackson was too young to go to the Oceaneers Club. It is for ages 3 to 12.
Right.
We were able to check it out on our day, I think it was our second day when we went to Nassau before we left the ship. We were able to go to their open house. So we got to show him around, like he was able to see all of the stuff, but we couldn't like leave him there for supervised play.
Right.
We had to be there during the open house, and the open house was only for like an hour and a half, I think.
Right.
So unfortunately, we weren't able to utilize the Oceaneers Club on this trip.
Right.
And we weren't able to utilize the It's a Small World Nursery because they were closed. So because of that, and we knew that going into the cruise, we knew that there would not be a babysitting type service or a nursery service available to us. So we opted to bring a friend with us. So that was what we did to kind of like bypass not having the nursery service.
Right.
We got a lot of questions about the babysitting service and about our friend Matt. So I just wanted to answer this one as well. So they said, I'm curious, is your friend Matt a hired babysitting service? I know this is an actual thing that you can do for Disney parks. Just wondering if it's available for the cruise as well. So no, Matt is just our friend. He's just, I don't know if you guys remember, we did a video where we did Christmas in July. Our friends that made us the Christmas dinner in July, like the British dinner, basically the English dinner. They also made us an English breakfast as well. That he's that friend that made those meals for us. So and basically he had some time off of work, and we were like, hey, do you want to come on this cruise and help us out, and we'll pay for your cruise. And that's kind of how that went.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that you could hire a babysitter, like a nanny service. We've never done that, so I don't know, like I couldn't recommend a company or point you in any direction for that, but I'm sure that's something you could do in your area, but that isn't something that they offer on the cruise.
Right. Mostly because they do in normal times have It's a Small World and the Oceaneers Club for these type of situations. And I should also say that they mentioned that there is a service at Walt Disney World that does this, and I don't know if they are currently doing that at Walt Disney World because of coronavirus.
Yeah, and I didn't even know they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that was new to me.
It's interesting. It's not a Disney service, but it is a company that works with Disney to provide babysitters that'll like come to your hotel room and like stay in your hotel room with your child while you go off and have dinner or something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we just felt more comfortable bringing. I don't know that I would feel comfortable. I think I felt the most comfortable bringing a friend because I know we know him. We've known him for a really long time. Jackson knows him and loves him. So that's what worked best for us on this cruise, and everybody had a really great time together. So it was great. So this next question is asking about the COVID test that Jackson had to get before we went on the ship.
Right.
So because we're vaccinated, we're fully vaccinated, we didn't have to do the initial COVID test.
Right. We still had to do one at port, but we didn't have to do one 3 days beforehand.
Right. So because Jackson is too young to be vaccinated, we had to find a place that we could get his COVID test. And we just weren't sure where to go. We weren't sure where to go for his age group specifically.
Because I did look online at some of the places that are very common, like Walgreens, CVS, things like that, and I couldn't book for a 1-year-old. They wouldn't let me. So I asked Disney when I called. I was like, "Hey, where can I get a COVID test for a 1-year-old?" They're like, "The airport."
Well, the other thing about this too is that we didn't even know that he needed a test 3 days beforehand.
Right.
Like I think you called for something else, and then they specifically mentioned it. And then we had to scramble and try to find this test because if we didn't, we wouldn't be able to board the ship.
Right. And because it's kind of confusing on their website, like what tests, who needs tests and who needs to be vaccinated and stuff like that. So yeah, we had to like book it last minute and it worked out great. Like he did great and it was at the airport. Super easy to do.
But a lot of people did mention, why didn't you just get a free one with your insurance? And I don't know why we didn't do that.
Because I couldn't find one in his age group.
Oh, that was
and
that.
Our pediatrician didn't have any openings this close.
Oh, that's what it was, right? Okay.
So
the next question that they had is, did we feel seasick, and how did Jackson do on the cruise? I think they're meaning as far as like seasickness. So the first night, it was, I think, the most rough, like
Yes.
of seas that we had. And honestly, I felt fine.
yeah, but we did talk to some people that did get seasick that day.
So I guess what they said is that they went to guest services or just to like the front lobby, and they told them just to take Dramamine, I think. And I think you have to take that. So when you're feeling seasick and you take Dramamine, it doesn't work right away. It has to like kind of build up in your system.
Right.
So I think they recommend to take it if you know that you're going to get seasick, to take it the day before you get on the cruise.
I think so, yeah.
So that's what I would recommend if that's something that you know is going to be an issue. I would just recommend taking it the day before. But I didn't have an issue at all on any of the nights, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty rocky.
It was rocking a good deal.
Yeah, so I will say that it helped me sleep. I had really great sleep on the ship.
Yeah. And Jackson had absolutely no issues with the ship rocking back and forth.
Yeah, no, he was fine.
Yeah.
He really, I don't think, so the thing with Jackson is that he knows like what a hotel is, but he doesn't know what a cruise ship is. So he just kept saying we were at a hotel.
Right.
I don't even think he realized we were on the water. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he was probably just like, this hotel's kind of wiggly.
Yeah, right?
But he did really great. We were very proud of him. He did a good job.
Yeah.
Here's the next question that they asked was, for the cost of the cruise and a cost of a trip to the parks, now would you recommend the ship over the parks?
Yes, I would.
Would you?
Yeah, I would, because to me, the cruise ship was much easier. Like, I know leading up to it, it was difficult, but like being in a
Wait,
theme,
difficult? Why? Because
as far as like the COVID tests and
Okay.
like waiting in the parking lot to get the results of the COVID test and like it. But other than that, once you're on the cruise ship, there's like an itinerary that you can follow.
Yeah.
There's like, you don't really have to worry about anything. The food, you could literally just be like, I'm going to call room service. Shows up free of charge.
I would say that I couldn't really compare the two.
Yeah, two totally different vacations.
Well, it's just like there's no rides. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like there's the aqueduct, but there's no. I think on the Wish, there's going to be more like play areas for kids of all ages.
Right.
So I think on the Wish, I might recommend. After seeing it, I haven't actually seen it in real life, but after we go on our Wish cruise, I'll have a better answer for you. But I think that it's hard to compare because it's a much more laid back trip, I would say, on the
Yeah.
cruise. because you have a lot of time to relax. So if you're looking for a vacation where you can relax but still have a lot of really great family time, I would say the cruise is probably the best option because you're still getting that Disney magic, but it's not as go, I guess.
Right, and there is less to do on a cruise. Like, you're not going to find Big Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, Splash Mountain, and Small World. Like, all these things to do at Walt Disney World. There's also more options at Walt Disney World as far as, like, restaurants. You can get a quick service. You can do a sit-down. You can do this. You can do that. At the cruise, you've got 3 restaurants. And, the places upstairs, the quick service, stuff like that.
I think the other thing with the cruise that I do think is, like, a pro is that you have, like, a set amount that you're spending. So, like, if you opt not to do any of the additional charge items, you know exactly what your cruise is going to cost. You know how much your vacation is. When you go to Walt Disney World or Disneyland, there are so many variables as far as food and just souvenirs and stuff like that. You really have no idea how much you're going to spend.
Right.
So it's harder for us, especially, to stay on budget for a park trip than it is for the cruise.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah, that's a really good question, though.
I think it's individual preference.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think it is what you want. Do you want to relax? Do you want to have a lot of, like, really good quality family time? I would do the cruise.
Yeah. But if you want to, like, if your kids want to just ride Big Thunder Mountain, you got to go to Disney World.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but that is a really good question. What do you guys think? Leave in the comments down below what you think would be the better vacation based on your preference or just based on what you see, what you've seen from the videos. I'm just curious to see what you guys think.
I would be interested to do the math to see if I could work out, say, like, a person leaving from Michigan, coming to Florida, plane fares, everything like that, cost difference between going to Walt Disney World for 5 days or 5 nights or going on a cruise for 5 nights.
I bet it would probably be more expensive depending on the hotel that you book.
Yeah.
Especially if you're staying on property. Yeah, that would be a good one to find out. Yeah. But great question. Their next question is, why was there almost no one on the ship?
CDC guidelines right now is limiting the amount of people on the ship, but they are raising it up currently. So when we were on, it was 1,400 people.
But the ship had a max of 4,000 people.
Right.
So so there were room for 4,000, but there were only 1,400.
Right.
It was amazing. It was honestly, I think that's part of the reason why it was such an amazing and magical and fantastic cruise is because there was so much room.
Right.
There was very low crowds, it was great.
But the cruise after us, they actually had already bumped it up to like 2,200 people. And
then I think that our room host or our server, somebody was telling us that I think in April of next year, they're going to bump it up to 2,700. So we're just going to be inching closer and closer to that, like, full capacity cruise.
Right.
Now, I don't know. Things may change based on, like, different variants of the virus. I don't know. That number may go down. It may go up. I'm not sure. But I will say that having a lower capacity, like, on the cruise was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really, really nice.
And it was literally the safest place that I've ever felt. It felt like the safest place that I've ever been since the start of the pandemic.
That was a question that somebody asked. I don't know if I saved it or not, but somebody did ask, how did you feel? Did you feel safe? And just knowing that everybody had been tested, everybody was vaccinated, and if they weren't vaccinated, they were double tested. Nobody, or at least we didn't hear of anybody having a case of coronavirus on the ship. I think that we probably would have been informed of that.
Well, yeah, because anybody that wasn't vaccinated had to be tested before getting off the ship.
Yeah, so Jackson had to be tested before we left. And it was honestly, like Tim said, it just felt very safe.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this next question is a really good one, and it was something that I didn't even think to answer, but they asked, do you have to have a passport to go to Castaway Cay or any of the Disney cruise destinations?
No, for Castaway Cay, you just need to have your birth certificate or a copy of your birth certificate, and if you're over the age of 16, a valid driver's license.
Okay.
So, because Jackson was young, we just needed to have his birth certificate, but we needed to upload that to Disney's website before getting on the cruise, so we didn't have to bring it with us onto Castaway Cay. It was already loaded with the Key to the World card. So, because we had that for Jackson, that's what we scanned in and out of the ship with. They could see a copy of his birth certificate there and our passports there. So, the way that it's worded on Disney's website is for Bohemian cruises, you don't need a passport. You just need your birth certificate. but I don't know if that's true for getting, as they said, to go on the cruise. They didn't mention getting off the boat or off the ship at like Nassau.
When we got off the ship, they looked at our passports.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if that applies for a birth certificate getting off on Nassau. So I would just, if you want to get off on Nassau, I would play it safe and have a passport. But to go on the cruise that we went on that stopped in Nassau, if you were not to get off the ship, you do not need a passport. You just need a birth certificate.
Right.
So, and it's very complex, I know. But there are other destinations for a Disney cruise where you absolutely need a passport.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. Like depending on what cruise you're booking, the passport rules may change.
And I would definitely look all of this up. If you're planning a cruise, if you're going on a cruise and you're not sure, just like double check on Disney Cruise Line website just to be like totally sure. So the next question is, did they have a sail away party?
And on our cruise, they did not. And so a sail away party is where everybody, all of the passengers are out on the upper deck, and there's a big show with all the characters and everything. And basically it's like a way to like celebrate you leaving on your cruise.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have that on our cruise, but we did have like a little kind of sort of show at the very beginning on embarkation day, where we entered in, they said our name, please welcome Jackson to the cruise. And then we stood in front of the main stairwell in the atrium. Captain Minnie was there and Captain Mickey were there. And that was our quote unquote sail away party.
They just did it for like a few families at a time. So because right now, when you're booking a Disney cruise, you do have to pick a boarding time, basically. So that's so that they can regulate like how many people are boarding the ship at once, so there's not a crowd and all of that. So because they do that, a few families will go into the atrium, you get on your little circle, and then you have your
little show.
It's almost, in a way, I like it a little bit better.
Yeah, it was easier.
It was easier, and you got a really good view of the characters, and it was not as loud and maybe not as scary for Jackson, I think, because I don't know how he would have done at the actual sail away party. That might have been like a little too much for him.
Too rambunctious.
Yeah, so I think it worked really well for us. But I do miss the sail away parties.
Yeah. And I'm sure that they will return in the future, but
I hope so, yeah. But it was honestly, I like the changes that they made. I think you still got that feeling, that like celebratory feeling. So,
right.
So I was happy with it. Oh, okay. So this next question, I just wanted to answer because I thought it was kind of funny, kind of cute. They said, was this the first ever Jackson cam? So Jackson held the camera when he went down the little Mr. Ray's slide in the Finding Nemo splash pad area. And I don't think that was the first Jackson cam.
He's held the camera and ran around with it before. You got it? You want to hold it? Okay, you got it.
Okay.
That's the camera. You're vlogging.
Okay.
You got the wrist strap? Thank you. You did great.
So it's definitely not the first Jackson cam, although this might be like the cutest one.
Right.
So
this is his favorite one. He's asked to watch that one over and over
oh my
and
gosh,
over again.
he loves it. He always says Nemo video.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it won't be the last either. So what would happen if your test came back positive, and does Disney Cruise Line refund you or give you a credit for a cruise at a later date?
So right now, Disney has changed their refund policy and their cancellation policy. So up to 15 days ahead of your cruise, you have the ability to change your date of your cruise, to adjust it. But then once you're within the 14-day period, including at the port, if you test positive or if you show any symptoms or anything like that, there's a full refund. As long as it's for a positive test or coronavirus symptoms, you get a full refund.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you tested positive at the port, yeah, you could just get your money back. And I'm sure that they would also work with you if you wanted to reschedule it. But there is definitely, on the website says there is a refund policy in place for if you have test positive or have symptoms within the 14 days of sailing.
Yeah, so you definitely aren't going to be, they're not going to withhold your funds because you have coronavirus.
And I will say this too, is if you test positive, that means that nobody in your party can go on the cruise.
Oh, right. Okay.
So if you or somebody in your party test positive, you're not allowed to board.
So this one, I was really interested to answer. They said, would you say that you like Remy's more than Victoria and Albert's, or like less, or why?
Yeah, I liked it better than Victoria and Albert's.
I did too.
I thought Victoria and Albert's had a stuffier feel to it. Like, both restaurants are fancy, but I didn't feel, what's the word, like,
When we were at Victoria and Albert's, I was almost like afraid to ask questions.
Right.
I was like afraid to ask, am I using the right fork, or how do I eat this? Or, just, I didn't know if I was doing it right. And I felt a little more anxious at Victoria and Albert's because of that. And I think that if Remy's was a standalone restaurant that you were just paying, the price and not on top of the cruise price, I would imagine it would probably be around the same price as Victoria and Albert's.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I don't really know, but that's just my guess. So I would say that they're similar in like quality and experience, but I liked Remy's better.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe because our server was not laid back, but more like
it was
open,
just more
almost.
comfortable to me.
Yeah, like it felt like I didn't have a problem asking him any questions at all. And then when the sommelier, is that how you say it?
I don't know.
Okay, well, when he came by the table and he was doing the wine service, he was very just personable and approachable, and I didn't feel like dumb asking him questions about the wine, because obviously, like, I've never had Dom Perignon, I've never had, like the fancy red wines that he had picked for me. Like, I had a lot of questions, and I just felt very okay asking him the questions.
Yeah.
When we were at Victoria and Albert's, it really felt like you weren't even supposed to talk to your server.
Right, and it was like, you gotta talk real quiet, Victoria, because you don't want to disturb anybody else around you.
Which is why, so I'll link that video down below where we ate at Victoria and Albert's, and the reason why we didn't talk during dinner and we did our review the day after is because we didn't want to, we really felt like we couldn't talk during dinner. So it was just a stuffier experience. The food was great. Like, I really enjoyed the food. I just don't know that I enjoyed the experience as much.
Right.
So Remy's, like, thumbs up for me.
Also, Remy's took less time. Victoria and Albert's took like 6 hours or something like that. It was a long time.
I just remember being so tired by the end of the dinner that I feel like I had them wrap up my cheese plate because I couldn't even, I was so exhausted.
Yeah.
So, I think Remy's really knocked it out of the park. Okay, so this next question is, they said, obviously Remy was an extra cost, but do you book and pay on the ship for it, or are all of the extras paid ahead of time?
So, this is where it gets complex. All of the extras are not paid ahead of time. They're paid during the cruise, but you do have to make a down payment on the cruise when you book it. So you book, and within 24 hours of booking it, you have to pay a 20% deposit.
This is just the cruise, not your dinners,
Right.
not Remy's.
And then, depending on what level of room you book, either 160 days out or 60 days out, you can book your dinners like Remy or Paulo. So concierge is 160 days out, and then there's various levels of the Castaway Club that can book further out. And then for general guest, it's 60 days out. Mm-hmm. And you have to try to get it on your 60th day because they will fill up.
Yeah, they do book up. So I was really happy that we were able to get into the Remy dinner. And I think the only reason that we were able to do it is because this cruise had a limited capacity. So there were more open spots available.
Right.
Which I'm so thankful that we got to try Remy. Like, honestly, it was really, really like the highlight of the trip for me. It was so nice.
And so you book it and you don't pay for it then, but then before you get off the cruise, you are charged the amount. So another thing about the 60-day window is, in order to book these like excursions or dining experiences, you have to have paid your cruise in full. Mm-hmm. So your full payment for the cruise is due 60 days from sailing. Mm-hmm. So once you pay it in full and you're 60 days out, then you can book your dinner at Remy or Paulo or brunch or whatever you want.
But you don't pay for, so like we paid for our dinner the night of our dinner.
Right.
So, and then we paid our tip the night of the dinner as well.
But we paid for it by charging it to our room. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the cruise, we settled up.
Right, yeah.
So.
Well, they actually settled up in the middle of the cruise and at the end. So
a few times throughout the cruise.
I think once you hit a certain like dollar point, they're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and charge you for this. And then you keep going until you rack up the next like dollar point, and then they charge you. So I think that depending on how much you're spending, you might be being charged during the cruise.
Right.
But either way, you're going to be all paid up by the end. So they also asked, are the excursion options less now with COVID too? And I think that they were. If I remember correctly, when we were on Castaway Cay, they had some things that were not available.
Right.
And I don't know if that was due to weather or if that was due to COVID. I'm just
Right.
not sure. So I would say that if there's an excursion that you're interested in and you don't see it, maybe give them a call and just double check if it's something that they're offering at this time. But everything that we wanted to do was available.
Right.
So I would say that for the most part, everything is available.
Yeah.
They also asked, do they have a teen club and a teen pool?
So on Disney Cruise Lines, the teen area is called Vibe. Mm-hmm. And they do have a specific club for these teens to use. And they have a specific pool for them with like a lounge area too.
And it's not like a huge pool. It's definitely like a smaller pool, but it's a cool area. It's very, like, I wish that I could go and check it out. I know they do have like open house times that you can go see them. We were more interested in the Oceaneers Club when they had the open house, but I think on our next cruise, we might check out the Vibe area. I just want to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really neat. So the Vibe area on the ship is for ages 14 to 17. They do have like quite a few clubs for all the kids, different ages. So there's another one called The Edge, which is like the tweens and teens club. And that one was 11 to 14.
Yeah.
And so they don't have their own pool. I think just the Vibe,
Yeah.
the like older teens, I think they're the ones that have their own like pool area.
And then there's also, it's pretty funny because you'll see on the schedule for the day, the 18-20 club.
Oh yeah.
That's for people 18 to 20 years old. That's like, you're not a teenager, so you're not hanging out in Vibe, but you're not old enough to drink yet. Mm-hmm. So like, it's this little like group of adults.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I like that Disney really takes into account every single age group. I really like, that was something that a lot of people were saying is, well, I have older kids, they're not going to want to go on a Disney cruise, or I don't have any kids, so I don't want to go on a Disney cruise. And I really do think that they have something for everyone.
They do.
Even if you don't have kids, or if your kids are older, I think that they can find a way to have fun on the ship, for sure.
Yeah.
The only thing that I think really sets, not the only thing, but one of the things I think that sets the Disney cruise apart is that they don't have a casino.
Right.
So that is something, if you're looking for that on your cruise and you like, it's something that you have to have on your cruise, I don't think that you should go on a Disney cruise because
Right.
they don't have that.
And there are other things that a Disney cruise doesn't have. I think the casino is the biggest thing, but like I've seen like standing waves, like a flow rider on cruise ships. Disney doesn't have those. Like a rock climbing wall, Disney doesn't have that.
Right, yeah.
But like they have like a sports simulator. We didn't even get to show you guys the sports simulator on the last cruise because it was like booked up.
Oh.
They have mini golf. They have a lot of pools. They have the slides.
But I think it is also based on what ship you're on. So again, with the Vibe pool area, the teen pool area, I don't think every ship has the pool. That pool area is only located on the Disney Fantasy and the Disney Dream.
Right.
So if you're hanging out in the Vibe area on the Wonder or the Magic, I don't think they have a pool for the teens there.
No.
But they can use the other, like the family pool area.
Yeah, they just don't have a specific one for them.
Yeah. All right, so this next question, they asked, what shows were available on the cruise? I'm a fan of musical and entertainment and would love to learn more about it.
So on our specific cruise, we had Frozen, like the live action Frozen musical. And then we also had a show called Disney Believe. And so we weren't allowed to film any of those. So we didn't go and see them because we wouldn't have been able to show it to you guys.
No, yeah. So we have seen a version of, like, it wasn't called Believe. I think it was called something else when we were on the Magic on the West Coast.
Right.
And again, I'll link these videos down below if you want to check them out. But Disney did give us like stock footage to kind of show you guys what those shows looked like. So we got a little bit of stock footage of Frozen and a little bit of stock footage of the other show like Believe. And I will say that they're great shows.
Yeah.
Like they're really fantastic. But unless you're there for like a media preview, you cannot film any of it. So we wouldn't be able to show you what it looked like, unfortunately. Right. But I do recommend checking it out. And then we actually met up with a family that went to go see the Magician, and they said it was really good. So they do have other entertainment as far as like, if you're looking for something outside of the trivia kind of things that they do, they have magicians, they have, remember the
like
one?
A piano player, a violin player.
Well, we saw one that was almost like Stomp, but it was a different name.
Oh,
Do you remember
yeah.
that? It was like a comedy thing too.
Yeah.
So they have other ways to be entertained in the evening time. You just have to look at your itinerary.
So, and the shows will change throughout the season, depending on which ship you're on. So take, for instance, we were on the Fantasy. So the Fantasy could have Aladdin on it.
Ooh.
Disney Believe, the Golden Mickeys,
Oh, okay.
which is like
A singing group.
yeah.
So depending on which cruise ship you're on, there will be different entertainment options. But they have things like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Frozen, Tangled. There were lots of different things to choose from.
Yeah.
So, and then you can also watch movies on board.
Oh, yeah.
That was something that we didn't get a chance to do. I really wish we had seen. So they had Shang-Chi and they had the Eternals playing.
Right.
And I wish we had gotten to see it.
Another thing that's unique about Disney Cruise Lines is if there's a Disney movie premiering on land, you can watch it on the ship for free.
Yeah, that
Like,
was Eternals.
on premiere day.
Yeah, Eternals came out when we were on board and we missed it, but we met some people who saw it and they said it was really good.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see that one. It just in general,
day.
yeah, because it sounded pretty awesome. Okay, so this next question is a really, really good one, and I didn't show any of this in the like cruise vlogs, but they asked how much should you tip your servers and housekeeping, and then does it vary based on the length of your cruise? So on the last night of our cruise, we got a little piece of paper and some envelopes. And on that piece of paper, it said housekeeping, or your room host, they call them a room host, will be tipped this much. So they say, you're tipping your room host this much. So for example, ours got $45 for the 5-day cruise.
Right.
And then for our server, she got, I think it was like $40. And then the assistant server got $35. And then there was also the head server. And I think that they got like $15 or $10. Now that's they've already charged that. There's no like disputing that. So you will be paying that much money.
Right.
And that comes directly, like you don't have to bring that cash. It's automatically charged to your key, to your room.
Right. So it's not included in the cost of your cruise, but you do pay it. Like they automatically charge it to you.
Right.
And it is based on the amount of days that the cruise is.
Yeah.
The other thing though is that...
But it's also based on the price of your room.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that you can add extra. Like we added extra. We added just cash on top of that.
So I think we more than doubled the amount just because of the service that we got. I mean, the service was fantastic. Our room host was fantastic. Everybody just did a really great job. Our servers, everybody just went above and beyond. And so I definitely really wanted to make sure that they knew how much we appreciated the work that they were doing. I also know that they are not being paid the same as a full capacity cruise.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure that they were, being compensated for not having the full cruise. So that was something that we just wanted them to know, like how much we appreciated them. All right. So this next question is, what was the process like from buying your tickets and your package online to actually getting on the ship? Could you explain how you did it being residents, so I have a better understanding when I book my cruise? So let's try to answer this in like the easiest, like simplest way possible.
Okay. So I went online and I found a cruise that had a double dip into Castaway Cay. And I said, book. And I paid for the deposit on like right then.
What was the deposit? Do you remember?
20%.
Okay.
And then once we got closer to the time of sailing, 60 days out, I paid the rest of it. And then we were able to book excursions and like the getaway package on Castaway Cay where I rented bikes, snorkels, that sort of stuff. And then book any sort of extra experiences like dining experiences like Remys that we wanted. Or any sort of like the massages that we got on Castaway Cay. I booked those that day too. So I paid the full balance after 60 days out. And then 14 days out, I uploaded all of our documentation to Disney's website and to a website called DLC Safe Passage, which is where you upload all of your vaccination and stuff like that. Then 3 days out, I uploaded Jackson's COVID negative test. And then 3 days out, we booked a time to go to the port. And then day of, we went there at that time, took a COVID test, waited about an hour to get the results. Once we got the results, then we went on board and the rest is history.
Yeah, it was definitely like a long process getting to the ship, but it was worth it. And I think it's one of those things that sounds more complicated when you're saying it, but when you're actually doing it, it's not as complicated as it sounds.
Yeah, because this was all spread out. What I just said in 30 seconds was spread out over 60 plus days.
Yeah.
So
I think if it were me, and I'm not somebody who's like, you're really good about just doing things in a timely manner. Like you're really good about that, knowing your deadlines and things. If it were me, I would put like an alarm or like a timer in my phone that's like, on this day you have to put this in the Safe Passage website.
Right.
On this day you need to, book these things. That's what I would do, just to make sure that I'm doing everything at the right time.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
So there it was. That's the process of booking a Disney cruise. Not as bad as you would think. So that was just some of the more frequently asked questions that we got. There were a lot more.
Yeah.
And what I think we'll do is we'll have a live show one day where we just kind of like field some Disney Cruise Line questions.
Yeah, because I know that you guys had more questions. Currently we've been filming for over an hour, so I don't want this to be like a super long video. I want to make sure that it's easy enough to like digest all of the information. So I think we'll plan a live show. We'll let you guys know ahead of time, because we don't normally give you guys like the time that we're doing it or the day that we're doing it. We just kind of pop up. But right. I think this one will actually give you like a time and a date, so that if you want to be there, you can be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all in all, we hope that this video kind of helped you out, answered a few of your questions. Maybe we inspired you to book a cruise. You never know. I'm just saying we had a lot of fun.
I will say that we like immediately, and I know we talked about this in one of the other videos, but we like immediately looked for another cruise. we got into the port as soon as we could turn our internet back on. We were like, when's the next one?
Right.
So I think it's definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like highly, highly, highly recommend booking a Disney cruise. We had such a good time. Yeah,
and I will say that another thing that we did is on board, there is a way to get 10% off your next cruise.
Yes.
And so we did that. Basically, you put down a $250 deposit on another cruise, and then you have, it was like 22 months to book another cruise, and you get 10% off that cruise. As long as you're not booking concierge, you're just booking like veranda or an inside stateroom or something like that.
Yeah.
You can get 10% off your next cruise.
So another thing that I wanted to mention too is that, so this cruise that we went on, obviously we had Jackson with us, so it was a different experience because we had a child with us on the cruise. We have taken cruises in the past where it was just the two of us, and it was just 2 adults, no children, just enjoying the Disney cruise. So if you want to watch those videos and see if you're somebody without kids, or you're going on the cruise without your kids and you want to see if it's something that's worth booking for you, I would definitely take a look at those videos, and I'll link our full cruise playlist down below. I'm also going to see if I can find our friends Peter and Kitra just went on a Disney cruise. They don't have children, so it's just the two adults going on a cruise. So you can kind of get another perspective on a Disney cruise, and I think they were on the West Coast too. So you can kind of get an idea of like the different coasts, how that works out. And then another cruising couple that I will link down below is Leg Life, and they're like really known for their cruising videos. And again, they will show cruise rooms that we've never been in before. So they have rooms without verandas that they've done. So if you're interested in seeing what that looks like, just to get a different perspective on Disney cruises with different couples.
Yeah. So all in all, it was a fantastic cruise. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We will definitely be going on one in the future.
Stay tuned.
So with that being said, we're off. We'll see you all tomorrow. And now it's time to pay the price.